Debate live from Milwaukee. Let's get back to the questions, and we want to touch on, obviously, one of the biggest of this issue in this year, taxes. And this will go to several of you. One of the biggest economic concerns, of course, in the country are taxes. Facebook data certainly backs that up. Once again, the green on this map that we're going to see here shows how the conversation around taxes is resonating across the nation, especially here in Wisconsin. First off, Dr. Carson, to you. You say you are in favor of a tax system, I guess akin to tithing, sir, with a flat tax rate of up to 15%, because you said, if everybody pays this, I think God is a pretty fair guy, so tithing is a pretty fair process. But Donald Trump says that is not fair, that wealthier taxpayers should pay a higher rate because it's a fair thing to do. So whose plan would God endorse then, Doctor? Yours or Mr. Trump's?
Well, you know, when I say tithing, I'm talking about the concept of proportionality.
Right.
Everybody should pay the same proportion of what they make. You make $10 billion, you pay $1 billion. You make $10, you pay $1. You get the same rights and privileges. I don't see how anything gets a whole lot fairer than that. But you also have to get rid of all the deductions and all the loopholes, because that's the thing that tilts it in one direction or another. And you have to set the rate at an appropriate level. Now, I will say that there are a lot of people who say if you get rid of the deductions, you ruin the American dream because, you know, home mortgage deduction. But the fact of the matter is, people had homes before 1913 when we introduced the federal income tax, and later after that started deductions. And they say there'll be no more charitable giving. We had churches before that and charitable organizations before that. The fact of the matter is, I believe if you put more money in people's pockets, that they will actually be more generous rather than less generous. And it's the money that they earn. And the other thing is, I do care about the poor people. And in the system that we're putting together, there will be a rebate for people at the poverty level. But I also want to emphasize the fact that as we get the economy moving, and I hope I get a question about how do we get the economy moving, there will be a lot more opportunities for poor people not to be poor people. Because this is America, this is the land of dreams, and our policies should be aimed at allowing people to realize that dream.
Thank you very much. Senator Paul, you said you want to blow up the tax code and start over with an across-the-board 14.5% fair and flat tax. You happily offer that it is not revenue neutral, and that's the idea. You want to choke off the amount of money coming into Washington. But don't you risk creating a near-term budget crisis, just as your presidency would be beginning?
Well, it's a great question, Neil, and thanks for including me in the tax debate. I think what's important about the tax debate is that we have to ask the question, where is money best spent? In the private sector and the government sector. I want a government really, really small, so small you can barely see it. So I want lower taxes and much more money in the private sector. My tax plan, however, is the only tax plan among any of the candidates on the stage that is part of a balanced budget plan. I put forward 3 plans that actually balance the budget over a 5-year period. Each of these plans have details on exactly where we'd cut. The question came up earlier, where would you cut? Nobody likes to say where they would cut. I've put pencil to paper and done 3 budgets that actually balance. I'm also in favor of a plan called the penny plan, where we'd just cut 1% across the board, and that budget actually balances in less than 5 years. So I think what's extraordinary about my tax plan is it is in the context of balancing the budget. What's also extraordinary about my tax plan is it gets rid of the payroll tax. Democrats demagogue this issue to death, and when they do, they say, oh, a millionaire would get a bigger tax cut than someone making $10,000. That's proportionality, as Ben's trying to explain to folks. But the thing is if we get rid of the payroll tax, everybody's going to get a tax cut. And this is something that I think the public at large will support and could win an election.
There are no deductions under your plan?
Ours is 14.5% for corporations, 14.5% for individuals, no payroll tax for the employee, the business tax pays for Social Security, and there would be 2 remaining deductions, home mortgage and charity.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Cruz, there isn't anyone in this audience or watching at home tonight who would not like to pay less in taxes. Most people just want a fair shake, and they don't want their money to be wasted. But explain how your plan works. How can you cut taxes as much as you propose without running up debt and deficits?
Well, sure, and you put your finger on what the problem is. The current system isn't fair. Washington is fundamentally corrupt. There are more words in the IRS code than there are in the Bible. And not a one of them is as good. Every one of them reflects a carve-out or a subsidy, and it's all about empowering the Washington cartel. My simple flat tax says that for a family of four, for the first $36,000 you earn, you pay no taxes whatsoever. No income taxes, no payroll taxes, no nothing. Above that, every American pays 10% across the board, a flat, fair tax, which means that no longer do you have hedge fund billionaires paying a lower tax rate than their secretaries. On the business side, I've got a business flat tax of 16%. Again, that applies across the board. Right now, with our corporate income tax, giant corporations with armies of accountants regularly are paying little to no taxes while small businesses are getting hammered. This is fair and across the board. Now, you ask, how do the numbers add up? I would encourage folks, if you go to our website, tedcruz.org, we have the specific numbers on the website. This plan eliminates the payroll tax, eliminates the death tax, eliminates the corporate income tax, and it abolishes the IRS. And the effect of that is incredible economic growth. It means every income group will see double-digit increases from the very poorest to the very weakest of at least 14%. So if you're a single mom, if you're making $40,000 a year, what that means is an extra about $5,000 in your pocket to provide for your kids, to make ends meet. It has a powerful, powerful effect. And there's one other really powerful feature of my plan, which is that it's border adjustable, which means if you're an exporter, if you're a farmer, if you're a rancher, if you're a manufacturer, you don't pay the business flat tax. Exports are free of that tax, but all imports pay that 16% business flat tax, which means this tax plan would cause jobs to boom, and it would let America compete with China and the world on a level playing field.
But you haven't told us how to pay for it.
Well, the numbers the Tax Foundation have put out is that the static cost of the plan is $3.6 trillion over 10 years. But the dynamic cost of the plan, which is the cost that factors in growth, is about $768 billion. It is less than $1 trillion. It costs less than virtually every other plan people have put up here, and yet it produces more growth, and it's one of the very few plans that abolishes the IRS. But on top of that, today, we rolled out a spending plan, $500 billion in specific cuts, 5 major agencies that I would eliminate: the IRS, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, and HUD, and then 25 specific programs. Again, that's on our website at tedcruz.org. You want to look at specificity? It's easy for everyone to say, cut spending. It's much harder and riskier to put out chapter and verse, specifically the programs you would cut to stop bankrupting our kids and grandkids.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Bush, Republican primary voters say tax reform should be a priority for Congress and the administration. But Governor Bush, how important is tax reform in your domestic policy agenda? Will you guarantee it in the first year of your presidency?
I'm going to fight as hard as I can to make sure that we shift power away from Washington, simplify the tax code to spur economic activity in this country. Of course, it's the highest priority. If we don't do that, we're stuck with the new normal of 2% growth. Hillary Clinton says, basically, we just got to get used to it. 2% growth means declining income for the middle class. It means more than 6 million people are stuck in poverty than the day that Barack Obama was inaugurated. It means more demands on government. Growing the economy is the first job if we're going to be serious about dealing with the deficit and debt. And more importantly, people are really struggling right now. In this economy, the disposable income of the great middle is down $2,300. So yeah, we've created jobs, Gerard. You brought that up early it was a good question. Jobs are being created, but they're lower income jobs than the jobs that were lost. And the net effect of this is we need to jumpstart the economy. I think of Jonathan and Reagan Love, who are supporters of mine. Jonathan has been deployed by the National Guard. He's in Oklahoma. Reagan Love, by the way, pretty great name, I think, is a teacher. If they had this tax cut, what they told me was that $2,300 of money in their pocket, they would go back to South Carolina and start a business. Imagine what it would be like, instead of having more businesses closed than started, we had it the exact opposite. We would grow our economy, and the government would get the revenue necessary to make things better. Hillary Clinton's approach to this is more top-down, more regulation, more taxes, more government, and it will destroy our economy.